So what are the best passports in the world? I want to start with just it's not common. To me, some of the most beautiful passports in the world are New Zealand and Ireland. I've seen a lot of different passports, particularly the passports that I do have. I have two right now. I find them so cool, like in terms of actual beauty and interest and all that. And you should like if you have an Irish friend or New Zealander friend, you should Google it. Like the images on the pages and the way they're put and the fact that they're like the Maori language in the New Zealand one and the Irish language in the Irish one, just like makes it very interesting. Beautiful documents like they're Kiwi or Irish. I'll definitely be very proud of the type of passport that I have. Like physically in terms of beauty, not in terms of like any actual benefit or use. So that's one thing I wanted to get out of the way. Let's talk about a little about actual practical things that matter a little more, like than just beauty. The Irish passport is one of the best. If I could only have one passport in the world, I might choose the Irish. It gives you the UK, it gives you Europe. Ireland is a very up and coming place. It's a very you know, been gradually getting better. And by the way, very fast, mind you. So Ireland is definitely very interesting passport to have. Uh, Another passport that I might consider is the Australian passport because, well, Australia obviously gives you New Zealand. If you've seen any of my videos on Kanzuk, if eventually Kanzuk does happen, it would give you, that's a little far-fetched, but it would give you freedom of movement with Canada and the UK as well. And Australia has a very different, special, let's call it, diplomatic relationship with the US, where they have the E3 visa, which is one of the easiest ways to move to the US, honestly. So you could live in a country that's like really well and sorted. By the way, I am in Australia right now, and well, nice weather and all that, which is something you really can't say about Ireland. And you could still have some ability in case you wanted to move for any sort of reason, really. Um, Another passport that I think is worth mentioning is the Swiss passport. And I've been trying to say passports that are not just regular, because, like, for example, the difference between the French passport, the German passport, and the Italian passport is literally minimal. Like, they have the same travel privileges. You can live in the EU. You could, like, be born in Germany, live in Germany all your life, being an Italian, and it wouldn't really make a difference because you're EU citizen, you know? So I'm trying to, like, get passports here that do have some sort of nuance like the Australian, like the Irish, and like the Swiss. And as I was saying, uh, the new ones with the Swiss passport is actually very interesting. Switzerland signed agreements with the EU in a way where obviously they have freedom of movement, they have uh, freedom of like labor movement as well. But if you're an Austrian and you're competing with a Swiss inside of Switzerland, the Swiss is going to have preferential treatment. So since Switzerland is not in the EU, their citizens are not EU citizens. They don't have to give the same rights to EU citizens as they do to local citizens. Whereas if you're a Swiss and you compete with an Austrian, let's say in Austria, uh, legally you have like the same chance of getting the job. There's no legal requirement to in Austria that an Austrian citizen would be picked over you. And so it's interesting that being Swiss, you get pretty much all the benefits of the EU without being the EU, without, well, many of the regulations and bureaucracies that the EU implies. And on top of that, you get preferential system in, well, what I would consider one of the best countries in the world to work and live in, which is Switzerland. And so, even though in terms of visa access or freedom of movement, you might think the Italian passport is better or German passport is better, or an Austrian passport is better. I would argue that the Swiss passport, in that sense, is actually even more interesting. And last but not least, I I will say that Canadian passport is still actually quite good. Again, in the far off chance that conflict ever happens, obviously, yeah, you get access to Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. And even though you're sort of stuck in Canada, you do have preferential systems, preferential treatment in the US, not only with NAFTA, but also being actually the only country where you don't need even an ETA or NESTA to get into the US. You can literally just go for 6 months out of the year, which is a very, very flexible visa system. Uh, and on top of that, obviously, you have most of what other countries, developed countries have in terms of visa-free access around the world. So those are four of the best passports in the world, in my opinion. Obviously, fundamentally, if you're going to live in the US, you might as well be American. If you're going to live I don't know, in Germany, you might as well be German. And there's reasons to want to live in many different countries. But in terms of just like absolute visa-free freedom of movement perspective, those are four very interesting cases that you ought to consider. But yeah, I'll see you guys around. Hope you have a good day. Cheers.